Welcome to the Community ROI podcast. Here, senior community experts, founders, and C-level managers tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about how a community impacts business growth. By listening to these conversations, you'll get actionable steps on how to connect community goals with business goals to skyrocket business growth while still bringing extreme value to community members. My name is Yurii. I help people and brands shine through communities and personal connections. And my guest is Brian Kling, a community strategy leader who's built award-winning B2B communities in Autodesk, STMicroelectronics, and Align Technology, and is passionate about customer-focused innovation and driving business impact through data, creativity, and people. So welcome, Brian.
Thank you. Yeah, happy to be.
Super happy to talk to you. And let's start with the easiest questions. Well, what's your definition of a community for business?
Community for business. Well, it's really adding that human touch, creating a bi-directional place to have value where you are exchanging with your customers and they're exchanging with each other. It's not just the company to the customer or the customer to the company, but you want customers to talk to each other. So having this triangle of interactions really accelerates their adoption of your product or service, as well as your understanding of how they're using that product or service, which then helps you make it even better.
Why do businesses need this human touch?
Well, so I will caveat that with it doesn't work for every single business. Like if you sell, $200,000 motors to a particular, manufacturing company or something, community is not quite, the right place for that. But for a lot of companies, when they're creating a product or a service and they have a customer network and even a partner network, these are opportunities to connect to them. And really, like I was saying, it drives this bi-directional value. So they appreciate that you're providing a place for them to talk to you, interchange with you, you interchange with them. And then also, like I was saying, you let them talk to each other. And really, there's no there's no company, I think, that can anticipate every way that people will use a product. I can give one example. At Align Technologies, was at recently a medical device company. I was working with a division that creates a 3D scanner for the mouth for dentists. So they do a high resolution scan for the teeth, and it's super accurate. Very interesting. One of the end users turned out to be a woman who was studying the health of coral reefs. And it turns out that coral is very similar to teeth. And so she was able to use the scanner underwater to actually scan the coral to see, how healthy the teeth were. Now, that's not a big revenue driver for the company, but it's an interesting story and can, it can become a marketing story that can, spark interest. So you just never know how people are going to use your product. You can anticipate, and yes, you create your knowledge, content, and things like that. But you're just going to learn so much by letting customers talk to each other as well as with you.
It sounds like the more you are present in these conversations, the better you can grow your business.
Sure. Yeah. So you can just, what I'd say is some companies kind of stay to the social media side. And I think those of us who practice, community for a long time, it's true. Like we say, oh, that's not community. It is community, but it's just, I kind of talk about, it's kind of like community light, because really social media channels are really mostly about broadcasting a message to the, yes, you can comment and do things like that. So you can get some intelligence out of that, but it's at a minimal basis. There's only so much you can get from that. So that's where I think a community provides the real value, because you can actually meet with the customers, you can connect them together, you can have events online and in real life. And especially in these days of AI and everything else, people still want that human connection. We are wired for, through evolution, through millennia. So you can't just throw that away, even if a new technology comes. There's a desire to connect.
Because of your example, like this picture came to my mind, that difference between community and audience, that if you have an audience or you are present on social media, people can still kind of like write you a handwritten letter and send it to you, and you can get it most likely. Sometimes not, sometimes can. And then when you have a community, it's more like you are meeting like really people in flesh and blood, in real person, and then you have this conversation. So I don't know why, but I just had it in my mind. And
No, that's
so
a good image.
What's your definition of a community goal?
A community goal? Well, so I think for me, when looking at a business and a community, it's coming up with some type of objective to meet that you've actually studied so that it has some type of end result that you're trying to achieve. This could be just for the community, purely for the community. It could be for the community and the business. So those are when we talk about KPIs, and really when we talk about ROI, we have to involve the business and the community. So we don't want to just talk about what's best for the business. We need to find out where in that Venn diagram there's this over value for the customer and for the business as well.
When you are connecting community goals with business goals, where do you start?
So the first start I would do is, with your own manager and with your own department. So depending on how large the company is, so this, depends what's relevant, but start close to where you sit and then move up the chain. So first make your manager and your department or your division happy, look at what their annual goals are. Of course, this is the time of year when a lot of them are setting them for the next year, depending on their fiscal year. So you want to look at what those goals are and then determine which one of those can community potentially, make some impact on, and then, bring it back down to the community and then see, okay, how can I work with the community, or what info or what activities or what insights can I get out of the community that can help to improve that end goal. So that way you're showing your value to the business. So you're going to, hopefully future-proof yourself a bit from future layoffs and things like that. I mean, if you're connecting to revenue, it's going to be hard to say, no, we don't need that anymore. So, if you're reducing churn, connecting to revenue, cost savings is an old but still useful metric. Support cost savings is one of the first ones that was done in community many years ago. But now there's community-led growth, where we're talking about ARR and as I said, reducing churn, this type of thing. So
what is just one goal of the community that you are working with at the moment or worked before that inspires you personally the most?
Well, one thing I liked is when I was at Align, we launched a Facebook pilot, and of course I was measuring CSAT, and then we also did NPS. So you have some quantitative metrics, but you also want to have qualitative metrics. So numbers are great, and people love the numbers, and they love to see the numbers changing and going up, but it's not the whole story for ROI. You need to have the qualitative as well. So customer messages, customer story, how is it changing their lives, this type of thing. So one of the things that we did was with this company, it's the company that invented the clear aligners for the teeth, Invisalign. So the scanner that I was representing, which is one of the divisions, the 3D scanner, it was marketed so heavily for Invisalign that a lot of dentists thought, oh, it's just a scanner for making Invisalign, clear retainers. But it was actually a full-featured scanner that could do all kinds of amazing things for a dentist in their lab. And so one of the things we did is, one of our goals for that pilot was to add educational content and spur conversation around what these other features and functions were. And so we actually monitored and surveyed the customers for, when I joined the community, my perception of the scanner as being able to do XYZ was this, and now after several months, it's this. And we saw a 20% lift in their perception. And this was one of the goals of the organization as well, was to change the perception of what it could do, what its capabilities were. So something that I enjoy, these kind of side things, which also point to a lot of value and providing this lift in people's awareness of what the products can do.
What were some specific actions that you've taken to reach that goal?
To reach that particular goal, or just
exactly this one?
Yeah, so that one, I mean, first of all, was identifying what one of the topics of interest was for the division. So this was very important to them, because very important in marketing this scanner for the mouth, that it could appeal to more dentists. A lot of people just, if I don't do Invisalign, it's not for me. But it can do all kinds of other things as well. It can detect cavities without using x-rays. It's more accurate, this type of thing. So first of all, understanding that was something they were really keen on, and then how can we create a process whereby we can try to understand that. So we, what's the end state? We're trying to build awareness, build people's knowledge about the capabilities. How can we do that? Well, we can surface more content for them around these different capabilities. So that's working with the rest of the organization, trainers and things like that. And then also working with our advocates to encourage them to promote more use cases and more stories on their channels as well. So it's kind of this beneficial mix. And then after we've done that for a period of time, then we use the survey to actually identify have we moved the needle or not.
How did you motivate advocates to share use cases and stories with you?
So there's a couple things in this particular industry. It's kind of common that they pay for some advocates because in the medical device, you're not allowed to directly market and sell in many countries around the world. It's forbidden. So it's a little different than other industries I've worked in where you don't pay advocates directly. So there's some paid, but then there's also, like in any community, there's a benefit for advocates. You support them, and that ups their clout, with their peers. So it's kind of a beneficial bi-directional kind of a thing where you're working with the advocates. You encourage them to create certain types of content. Of course, if they're paid, then they're going to create that for you. But also there's another tier down. So I also talk about in advocate programs. It's not just that there's one layer of advocates. There might be some of your top advocates, but then there's that group that wants to join the advocate program. And how do you consider it in layers and then build out a program for that so that you can, bring multiple layers of advocates into your programs as well.
So for those who get paid, they're more like an influencer. So basically influencers get paid for marketing some product. So it's like this monetary relationship. But what other benefits are for being an advocate in the community?
Well, again, it's part of it. Some people are motivated by the opinion of their peers, so being acknowledged as an expert. Some people, like when I worked at Autodesk, we had one of our advocates. All he wanted every year was just a letter from us thanking him for the value that he brought to the community. And then he used that in his annual review at the university. And he said, okay, that's perfect for me. That's all I want. So the motivations for why people participate are vast and different. There's a book I read many years ago called Drive by Daniel Pink that talks about this. And one of the key points in there is not to commoditize the activity of your super users or advocates. So, if it's a lot of times you say not to pay them. Now in the medical field, that's a different, need in the business. But a lot of times you don't want to pay them because then they think about, okay, I got this much money for this much time and they start to commoditize. Oh, that's not worth, So it needs to be more like surprise and delight type thing. Some people want access. The benefit for them is the access to the product team, the development team, inside information, visits by a VP if they're in the neighborhood, going to conferences and things like that. So there's multiple ways that they get value, and then the value for the business. Again, they're pulling in more attention because they have their own social channels. They're already influencers out there on their own, and then you can augment that by supporting them as well. So then it's this really a common benefit for both. So you can acquire more customers, more people are interested by these stories. So, again, it's this flywheel of kind of interest and content and bringing people in who consider the product.
So there are different ways of motivating customers and community members to help you grow your business. So I'm curious, how do you identify what customer fits what category, like how to motivate them?
Yeah, I think, well, part of it is just having conversations with them. So it sounds so simple, but sometimes in our digital age, we think we have to, do all these behavioral metrics and all this stuff. And sometimes it's just like, well, talk to them, have a half-hour conversation and just say, hey, we're super happy. We see that you've been participating, you've been answering questions, or you're creating great content. And I'd just like to understand more, about you and your business and understand what drives you to and help us here and how can we help you. So again, I think the other piece is companies should recognize this value, and there should be this bi-directional exchange. You're creating value for us on your time if you're not being paid. How can we create value for you as well?
Yeah, it's something people are forgetting about, just talking to other people. They try many things, try everything. We just had to talk. We didn't know that.
Yeah.
So start with talking.
It's that human piece. I mean, you learn so much if you talk regularly to people. You learn a lot. You can run all kinds of fancy metrics and pull all kinds of data, and that's important too. But at the end of the day, you never want to lose sight of these direct conversations.
You told a little bit about the marketing team that you are working with. So I'm curious, what 3 teams do you usually work the most with while building a community, and how does a community impact them?
Well, I'd say it's marketing, support, and then the product team, right? So those are the main teams. There are other ones, but those are the three biggies for me. So marketing, a lot of times community is in the marketing department. So you're sitting in that group. So that's about, so for value for that group, it's can you get customer stories, this type of thing to help drive, pre-sales for, marketing stories. What else can I say? I mean, with support, it's something I've been doing a long time. So with support, there's just a massive amount of value to hook these two groups together. You have the content. So you can be finding out what are the cases that they keep getting over and over again. You can create content for that. You can have that could be knowledge articles, it could be webinars, it can be white papers, that type of thing. So how can you reduce the load off the support team? I was a support person myself in the past, the third tier support technician, and the last thing you want is some basic question that comes over and over again. You're like, oh, why do I have to keep answering this question? So you try to offload that to 24/7 content that they can just search and find online, this type of thing, so you can focus on the harder things. I did a support cost reduction savings model. This was, a long time ago, back in 2011 is when I developed this. So, it's evolved a bit since then, but yeah, I did that quite some time ago. And then with the product team, also, it's quite clear. And I was doing this even when I was just working in support before I joined community, is getting the feedback from customers, creating again this flywheel of feedback so that they're constantly receiving feedback to understand, how should we work on the product and improve it to make sure that it meets our customers' needs. And as I said earlier, you can't always anticipate how they're going to use things. So you can do customer research groups and things like that where you're getting some feedback. But once you launch a product or service and more people come on board, they're going to start doing different things that you anticipated. So having this collaboration is key, I think. So I'd say it's really about content, and then the feedback and insights are kind of the main value drivers that I see. And then also just the goodwill,
Mm.
the fact that you are talking to customers, they appreciate that. And they will pick a brand that does that over a brand that doesn't, because they feel like, oh, you're listening to me. And for example, when you send out qualitative surveys and things like that, do you tell them what you did with that? Is it a black box, where, oh, I just send it and, oh, who knows, maybe something happened. Well, one of the things that I try to do is in the survey design, you don't want to spend too much of their time, but the next time the survey comes out, just a short statement on top. Here's something we did with your feedback from the last time. So telling them, oh, we are reacting and doing things with your feedback. And then, of course, you can post that in the community as well, and newsletters and etc.
Now, when you are talking about surveys and asking to people about the product, once again, this picture went to my mind that community is like a sonar for bats. So they're sending this wave out, and then it comes back with all the feedback they need to receive, and then you know how to move forward. So
Yeah.
basically, it helps so much. And once again, it's something that people are really, really missing, because they think like, whatever, why should we ask people? Like, we'll just ship what we think people need. But you need to ask what people need, not just ship,
Yeah.
but
And
what do you think they need?
you'd be surprised, but still you run into people who will say, "Oh, we know our customer. We don't need to do all this work." And no, you don't. Especially in these days, things change so quickly, etc. I mean, if you don't have regular, direct feedback from the customer, you're gonna have a challenge to succeed in the future, I think.
How do you encourage people from other teams to work with a community team or community overall without adding more and more work to their plates?
Well, I think part of it is like if you go to another team and you just have asks from them, can you do this for me because I need it? That just looks like more on their plate. But if you go to that team and say, hey, like I was talking about before, talking about these different groups and setting up ROI and things like that, hey, let's have a discussion. What are you trying to do? And how can community help you to achieve that goal? Another thing that I try to do is when I design surveys, especially kind of like the annual or the biannual surveys, kind of the higher level, how do I feel about the company and this type of thing? I try to leave one or two questions blank that go to a different group and say, is there something you want to know from the community? We'll put your question in and we'll give you all the insights and the feedback. So a way of giving first. But yeah, I think it's really about finding common value, so that if you do that, then it's not like they feel like, oh, you're just adding more things on my plate. It's like, oh, I'm going to get something that's going to help me. And so this kind of builds that relationship and that trust that, hey, we're working together on this. And because really community, there's very few parts of a company that can't benefit in some way from tapping the community and their collective intelligence or collective insights, collective activity. So it's always worth a conversation. Why not reach out to your peers and yeah, just be curious.
Now I feel like every part of an organization can benefit from a community. And I heard story about like legal department can benefit from the community, like
Mhm.
security department can benefit. So there is like it's I feel like it's all about the imagination that the community builders have and like how and the more they talk to other people in the company, like trying to understand what the challenges they are dealing with and how they can really solve them with their customers or with their clients or with community members. And I feel like one very important missing point is specifically this storytelling part, this feedback part, because sometimes you can go like, hey, let us help you. Like you do something and then it's kind of like a black box. Nobody knows what's happening in the community. They have no idea
Mhm.
like what's going on. Yes, they got some feedback and then like nothing. So I'm curious, how do you personally bring visibility to the overall community impact on business internally?
So one thing that I really encourage people to do, which I do consistently, is create a newsletter, create an internal newsletter. And like in a line, I think my distribution was about 1,700 people, and the company I think was 6,000, something like that. So you want to create a newsletter, and so it has multiple goals. So the first goal, of course, is to tell what are we doing in the community, how's that going, and it doesn't always have to be this big win and everything's perfect. You can also talk about challenges. Hey, let's be human, and it's supposed to be okay to fail, right? So well, if something doesn't work, that can be great to share too. So what's going on in the community? I think a little bit about how you can educate. So just a little bit of education, because a lot of times, of course, different groups across the company don't know about community. So what's a term or what's a concept or something that you learn that they can learn as well about what community is and how it can be valuable. Then you talked about story. So I always finish up with a story. And this could be a story about either an employee or a partner or a community member that did something interesting or useful for or in the community. And with a picture of their face, having, again, it's about people, right? So not just all text or numbers again. So a story, telling a story. So I think if you have this combination of what are we doing in the community, what value are we bringing, what are we learning, a little bit of educational material, and then a personal story or a close up on a person and the great things that they're doing or the things that they're learning or how they've evolved, this type of thing, then it's creating this kind of educational flow and you're giving them updates regularly. And then, of course, creating metrics, dashboards that people can access. The ones I create are real time, so they're updated real time. So
It sounds like when you're building an external community, you're also building an internal
sure.
community.
That's super important to think about that is, even if the company doesn't have an official internal community, you need to try it yourself. So we talked about reaching out to your peers in different groups to see how can we work together? How can I help you? How can you help me? Let's have some bidirectional value there. Then we have the bigger, what are the ROI, goals or the objectives for different divisions for the year. So that's a higher level conversation, but still making these connections. I mean, super important to connect across the business when you come in and not to just, say, okay, I'm in community and that's what I'm doing. I mean, community is about community, right? So you got to build that community yourself too. I think that's super important. And it's just fun that way too, right? Because otherwise, you feel more isolated depending on, we have a team, etc. But, yeah, it's a lot more fun and has way more impact when we're talking about impact if you connect to other groups.
I in many companies, community is usually a team of one, and many people feel isolated, as you've mentioned, and like they're working in a silo. But I feel like when you are talking to different team members, it doesn't feel like that. You are making all the company, like all the people that you touch, you are making them community team because you are all working together to on reaching not just community goals, but business goals. And when you're
Mhm.
working together, I feel like it's so much better. It's so much easier to do your community job.
Yeah, I think so. And you can say, "Oh, I don't have time to reach out," and that kind of thing, but it's super important, not only for just sharing what the community is doing and building this value connections to other people, but it's just really important as well, yeah, like we're talking about for you as a person to have those connections to feel like you're part of something bigger. An organization to feel like you're part of something bigger too. Again, to kind of, self-preservation, if hard economic times come up or something like that. The more value that you can show, the more people you're connected to, where you're creating value with, if something comes up, oh, maybe we should get rid of the community, and then people know who you are, they know what you're doing. Oh, but we get the newsletters, it's been going so well. Oh, I worked with so and so, and we did this great thing. We can't do this, and it's so valuable getting these insights and feedback from our customers. It's improving our product and service. It's we got to look somewhere else.
I have this personal feeling that during the COVID times, companies overhired community experts because
Mm.
suddenly everyone went online and they needed someone to know how to deal with all these people online. And then, like, when the more life turned kind of back to normal, we saw a lot of layoffs and many people were let go out of the communities. And I have this personal feeling that a lot of things happened because you couldn't find this connection. You couldn't kind of like share your story with other people. So they had no idea what happened in the community. So when the question happened, like, how can we save our resources? What's the first team to cut? Community. Easy. Let's do it.
Mhm. Yeah, so again, this is why that, having a newsletter and other things like that's important. Now, it doesn't always work. I'll be honest, I was laid off from a line, because they were launching a new product and needed the marketing budget for that. They had several rounds of budget cuts. So yeah, it was very unfortunate, but it's business, not personal. So those kind of things happen. I mean, the other thing that I see too is, smaller companies like startups or more younger companies, they typically understand community a little more and connect it better. The kind of the older companies have been around for a while. They're bigger, they're more siloed, there's less structure. Well, there's kind of structure, but it's diluted
Mhm.
shade. It's a little more challenging to make all these connections and do all these things. You don't know who you don't know sometimes. Like in one company I was at, there was no VP of support. There was no central leader of support. So I wanted to connect with the support organization. So what I had to do was reach out to the different divisions and find out, well, who's doing support for you? Who's doing support for you? And then I created this digital support summit to try to bring them together and share with each other, what are we doing? What are our wins? Where are we challenged? And then find those common challenges that then they could work on together to solve for the group. So, again, that was trying to create a community where there needed to be one, this type of thing. So, but yeah, I see that it's a more of a challenge in larger organizations because there's just so much going on. Whereas companies like, community-led companies like, like Notion and Figma and companies like that, it's kind of baked in already. Like I'm friends with Adler, who was at, and community is just integrated across the business, and which is great. And I think that needs to happen at the larger level too. Sometimes it doesn't, but yeah.
And we are currently using more and more technologies. So I'm curious, how do you use AI? Do you use AI? And if yes, how do you use AI in your community building process?
So right now I'm using AI mostly just to, not to generate content, but to check or, ideate on new ideas, things like that. But something that I'm starting to look at and want to play with more is, yeah, connecting like N8N with Claude and trying to build like an agent. So I know there's lots of people doing agents now, like support agents and things, but also, yeah, how can we do some automation which makes sense? So to me, in a way, this is a little bit goes back to like chatbots when they first came out. There's still a lot of chatbots that I interact with that I just get pissed off pretty quickly that they're just not well designed. And so the same caveat I would put to AI agents is everybody's doing the hot thing, got to have an AI agent. But at the end of the day, again, it's about people and it's about really designing it well so that it really does meet their needs. And where is the handoff and is it a good handoff? This type of thing. I mean, there's too many agents I run into that, or chatbots where an agent now is like a super chatbot, really, in a way. AI itself, it's not really intelligent. It's just, picking the next best word, right? Essentially. So it's like super automation. So it's about how do you do that in a thoughtful way that really does take the customer in mind and their experience, but then again, benefits the business. And that's not an easy slam dunk. You have to design it, you have to think about it and test it, get feedback.
Now, to your point, there is like every company trying to build their chat support chatbot, and know how to overcome it because like it's so I don't want to spend my time like talking to chatbot and trying to understand how to really solve my problem because they're like, let's be honest, they're not super amazing at doing that. So I'm usually like writing a prompt, connect me with a human, and then I go to support and then we deal with the conversation.
Right. Yeah, that's a common thing that people try to do. And if you build an agent and you're tracking it and that's happening a lot, then of course that's an obvious sign that your agent is not working well, it's failing. And should you have that agent? If you can't fix that, then you shouldn't have it.
You know, Brian, I wish to have the sky as a limit, but time is a limit. So the final question, what is one thing to do right away for someone struggling with identifying their community ROI?
I think it would go back to what we said before. Reach out to your manager. First at your manager. So again, like we talked about, don't try to go all the way to the top. Start where you are and then make your way up. So reach out to your manager. If you haven't done it, reach out to your manager and have a conversation. Hey, tell me about what are the goals for the year for you? What has been put upon you for what we're trying to achieve? I want to make sure that my work is helping support your work. And if you've had that conversation, then go to your manager and say, hey, let's talk to the head of our division and let's have the same conversation with them. It's good for your manager, it makes them look good, it makes you look good, and it starts that initial conversation. So I'd say that's, again, people to people, have that first conversation and see what comes out of that. And then see, have a project where you can then identify where you can actually help augment some of those goals that they have.
Last but not least, name 2 people I should reach out to talk about community ROI.
Well, Avital Noller, if you haven't talked to her yet.
We've talked, but
Yeah,
it's counted. Yeah.
you think, yeah, because you've already talked to a lot of people already.
But it's totally good. I'm not asking you to invent a new person. Like if you have someone on your mind jumping right away, it's totally amazing.
Yeah, I mean, there's Avital, there's Donnie Weinstein, who's now him. Who I mean, so she and I worked together many years ago at Autodesk. She's quite good on metrics and ROI now as well. I mean, there's Nikki Thibodeau, excellent. I mean, at the led by conference in London, which was great. I mean, there's lots of superstars there. There's Esther Trapadou. I should be able to pronounce it properly. I'm in the French part of Switzerland, but yeah, I think it's Esther Trapadou. She was in Amplitude, and now she's moved on to another startup. She's done some great things coming from a more pure marketing background, but then really dug in, and she's very metrics focused and ROI focused, and she's done some great stuff as well. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of people who are doing some great things now, and of course there's Brian Oblinger. Yeah, Rich Millington, Erica Cool, who's now at Gainsight. So yeah, there's a large list of heavies, shall we say.
Much more than just 2 people you've named. So yeah, it's already a huge list, and I totally get you. There are more and more and more people. And what is the best way to connect with you?
So for me, you can find me on LinkedIn quite easily. I usually pop up if you look for Brian Kling, or if you want my official LinkedIn, it's Kling Brian, because somebody else, a real estate guy, grabbed it before I did many years ago. But that's normally LinkedIn is the best place to connect with me. And I'm happy to have chats or people want to reach out with questions or just comment and talk about community. I'm happy to do so.
Got it, Brian. Thank you so much for being so helpful and honest and sharing your experiences and having such deep conversations, because I feel like it's something that very, very important, something that people are missing, and that the more you talk, the more you learn. The more you talk, the more you spark other ideas in other people. And the more you collaborate, the more you do all the things. And it's like, it was like a silver lion, like during the whole hour conversation. Talk to people, go talk to your team members, go talk to your management, go talk to your community members. And I feel like it's something that people really, really need to start with every time that they're building community, every time that they're trying to reach some business goals with the community. And yeah, once again, thank you so much for your time and for such a great conversation.
Thank you, and thanks for the opportunity and for all the work that you do to bring these conversations to light. And yeah, I hope that lots of businesses listen, because inside the community space, we like to support each other, but this is really to educate a lot of businesses on what they're missing out on if they're not really leveraging it well. So thank you.
That's the idea. That's the idea. And yeah, see you in the community world. And thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions about how the community can help you reach and overcome your business goals faster, let's connect on LinkedIn and talk about it. That's it. We're done. See you in the next episode.